Hi, today we are going to discuss about non-access modifiers in Java. So last video we discussed about access modifiers in Java, followed by, in this video we are discussing about non-access modifier. There is quite a few non-access modifiers are there in Java. So these are the list. We can see that static, final, abstract, synchronized, transient, volatile, and native. So these are the uh, non-access modifiers which is used along with the class, methods, variables, constructor, etc. to provide information about their behavior to JVM. Okay, so how these all are used for a good program or program solution or good software development, we need to use this in appropriate way. So this is a very important topic, and we need to understand what and all these used for, when we supposed to use. Okay, so let's start with a static. So static keyword or static modifier we are used with the blocks, variables, method, and nested class. So we can go with one by one, and what are the uses and how they are used, etc. We can see in our example. With example we can understand more. So here I have one Java project, Java tutorial. Here I'm going to create one package. So how to create? I'm going to create, right click, I'm just I created one package, non-access modifier, and I'm creating one class for this one. First one is static modifier. So I'm using static. So what is the we are using the static as a keyword for using the non-access modifier for the static string name is equal to benign. Similarly, I'm creating one method as a static void print static method. Okay, so and also I'm using a constructor here. And static is also can be used in with the block of code as well. So we can understand, we can there is one more is there, that is static can be used for declaring the static class as well. So that we can talk about later in subsequent video, but for the time being we can go with what is the usage of these three, that is we are used for uh, that is used for non-access modifier. How we can test this one? I'm creating one test class. Created one public method as well. Static void method, main method as well. So here I'm creating one. So how do we generally access the member and variables in in a class. So for that, we generally what we do, we generally will create its object. Through the object we are usually access, correct? So here, then we used to print that one using the sam dot name, correct? This is the way we generally do. So in order to access the member variable as well as the methods of a class, we generally follow the by creating the object, and then using the object we will refer the names, or we refer the variables or the methods. That is the general format we are following. But if it is a static, we can directly access using the class name itself. What I mean by that, we static dot name. See, see, I can access the uh, the particular variable using the class name instead of the object. So what is the difference between this? These values are, these variables are attached to the class, not an object. What is the difference between that? Because in this context, whenever we create the object, correct, so we can, that state, we can say that this particular name, that is the property or that is the variable, that is the state of that object, correct? So that that belongs to the object actually, correct? If it's a static variables, this is a static variable, now I declare as a static variable. So what that mean is, I can, I that variable, the state is belongs to a class, not an object. What is the difference is like, you see, I can create multiple object for this particular class, correct? I can create, I'm just copy pasting here. So sam1, and here I said print that one. I'm setting this one as sam dot name, and I created another object here, and I'm printing that value. Let's run this program. See, we can see here that its value is, see here, I'm what I did, I changed the here you can see this is one object and the sam1 is the second object. I printed the value here, forget about the other things. So I printed here, that is a binoy, and I set the value as the changed, correct? And after that, I printed here that value, that is changed, and again I access the name using the class name, that is also changed. What does this mean? I changed the name in an object level, correct? I try to change the name of name variable by using the object. Even though if I change the name, it is reflected in another object as well. See, this is a new object I created, but it reflected here as well, because this is reflected here because of that variable, name variable is a static means it is not specific to object, rather than it is specific to class, it belongs to class. That's the reason we are able to access that particular name and variable in this manner. For example, if I change this one into not static, this I cannot access using the uh, class name because it is a non-static field. Only static field I can access through the class name. So I just commenting out and running. See here what is that? I created object and I printed the name here, that is the Binoy, and I changed the name. See, I'm Sam dot name in object level I changed, but that is not reflected in the second object. Correct. This is why this is the reason not reflected, because this change happened in the object level. Because this is a now I changed into a non-static variable. So that's the reason it is object level. If it is a static means, if it is static means, it will be it will be class level. That is the difference. This concept is required in when we handle with when we do the exercise in the threads. So this is the one of the example of using the static. So static means static. Similar way we can also access the method as well. For example, if I do system.out.println static access modifier dot print this, also this is because the return type will be void, that's the reason. So what we need to do, we don't need to print this one, we can directly print the statement. So here this is also I can access, this is the method, this is the method I can access through the class name because of this static, that's the reason it's able to print it. We can see that that is the static method. Now again we can see that there is a one static block is created. See, in every time this is static block is created. What is the difference? The static block. Okay, so this static block we can see we are declared here like this. Okay, so static block executed once when this class is loaded into memory in the JVM. Okay, when the class is loaded into the memory, one time this will be printed. Okay, so that's the reason this static block is used whenever we need. For example, in a software, when you need a initialization, something that is required, that we can use or that we can implement in the static block. Okay, that is only once for this class loaded in the memory, that static block will be initialized, that static block will be executed. Okay, so that is why static used for the block. And we also talked about name, also talked about methods. Then there is one is there nested class, that's we can in nested class also we can use a static also, so that we can talk about in the nested class session. Okay, another one is the final. Why do we need the final variable? Final variable is used with the variable, method, and class. What is the use of the final variable? The final variable is used to make a constant in the case of the variable. If you use with the final with the class name, a class declaration, then the class cannot be subclassed. Okay, and if the final variable is used with the method, then the method cannot be override by the subclass. Okay, so let's have one example here. Finalizes modifier. So here I have final string name equals benign. Similarly, I can use with the final void print final method. I can also use this final keyword with the class declaration as well. Okay, so let's have this example. In what happens if the class is a final? So I'm going to create one subclass, and it main method as well. Okay, extends. See, I cannot access the or I cannot extend, or I cannot subclass. I can create a subclass of the final access modifier class because this is a final. This is a final means it cannot be subclassed. So it is a constant, or we can say that it is a final implementation, or it is non-modifiable class, or in the as making a subclass. Okay, so that purpose we are using this final keyword. If we delete the final and if we save here and if we come here, we can see that see so final access modifier is we can access here. So that is the difference if you do final variable there. Okay, if you use the final variable in a class, we cannot subclass that class one. Okay, that is the difference. And what about this final? So we talked about in previous video that is we can override this method in subclass as well. So what will happen? So I'm going to use the same method. So what is override? Override is nothing but reuse the same method in the parent class. So what is the parent class method? That is the void print. So I'm trying to use this void print here. What it is complaining? This is complaining about cannot override the final method from the final access modifier. Final access modifier, which is the parent class, cannot be the final method, that is the print method cannot be override here because it is a final. We cannot be override that one. If we remove this final, we can see that it can, there is no compiler is not complaining about it. So that is the reason we are using for final variable final. And what about these final variables? See, in the final variable we cannot for constant. What is the use of a constant? That is constant cannot be changed or will not be changed, correct? So if I reassign the value to something else, it will start complaining. See, it says that it says that it cannot be assigned. The final field cannot be assigned, correct? And then what is the use of the abstract? So abstract, we are going to we going to demo the abstract class in the following in videos. So the abstract is used when we require a, to be a class to be always a superclass. So we can use the abstract keyword with a class and method name. So we can see in the following. So the usage of that abstract keyword is that if you use that abstract keyword with the class and methods, that method and should be implemented into the subclass. We can see that is what is in the subsequent video going to cover that abstract class. Then synchronized keyword. The synchronized keyword is used in the multi-thread environment. So in the multi-thread environment, the multiple threads will be accessing a particular thread. So we can restrict the method execution in only for one thread. So that can be achieved through the synchronized keyword. So that is also we will cover in the following videos. And the transient. The transient is the keyword that is used whenever we and Java object is saving in the file system. So we are used the transient with variables. So the what is the state of the variable will not be saved in that file. What is the use of this? And if you use this transient keyword, because if it's any sensitive data, that should not be exposed outside of the program. So whenever we save this object, the state of the object is, what is the state of the object? That's a variable of the value of the variable, correct? That is the state of the object. So the state of the object should not be saved along with the object. So for that we are using transient. So if we use the transient, the state will not be saved in the file system. So that we will go with the serializable, deserializable interface when we talk about that one. That is also will cover. And what about the volatile? Volatile keyword is used when the in the multi-thread environment. So this is also used with the variables. So what is the use of the variable? When multiple threads access a particular variable, it always give you a latest value on that variable. What it means, when multiple thread accessing the variable and changing the value of that variable, for example index, and each thread is incrementing its value. Okay, for whenever the multiple threads, so two threads are accessing the variable index, the JVM will be make sure that the index value who is updated last, that will be reflected in every thread. So every thread will get the latest value for that particular variable. For that we are using the variable volatile. And the next one is the native. The native access modifier we used to implement native code using Java native interface. This is we very rarely using in our Java program. Uh, for example, take this class. Okay, so if you have the any native code implementation, okay, if you have any native code implementation, we can use that one using in Java itself. So the method is like this: how to access, for example, system dot load library in the sense, what is the native library. If we have in the case of Windows OS, there will be some DLL will be there. Okay, so the DLL will load into the JVM using the system.load library. Okay, so that DLL will have the method yum or something else, whatever be. And for the demo purpose, I put a yum. So the DLL jar or library will have the method yum. That is what we used here using the native. You can see that this is a native method. So if it is a native method, it is JVM will understand that it is native code implementation is there. So for that native implementation, how do we get that should supposed to be load the library? Okay, then how do we call that one? That one called a normal way. The class is named as native. In the main method, we are initializing with this one native is equal to n is equal to new native. Then n.m, that is the method here, will execute that particular native code in using the Java. We can see that in our one of the implementation. If you look into the Java itself, if you go system, this is the class. You can see here. See they are used the volatile keywords here. The volatile. Okay, so the volatile keywords used here as well. If you see here, see this is the native implementation. This is the Java's system class of Java J, which is part of the JRE. So you can see that they used it in native in system class itself. Okay, so these are the non-access modifiers used in, uh, in Java. So further we can talk about interface and abstract classes. Thank you.
If you like the video, please click the like button and subscribe for more videos.